Tony Tater's landed. He's going north of the border. He's a Toronto Blue Jay. We're going to get into that. Kirby Yates is a Dodger. We're going to get into that. And then we've got the top 10 first basemen in Major League Baseball. It is the Just Baseball Show. Today is Wednesday, January 22nd. I'm Jack. He's Peter. As always, we are brought to you by the fine folks at BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Again, folks, however you want to make sure that we populate on your podcast feed, just do it, okay? Like, follow, subscribe, whatever the lingo is on the social media platform or the search engine that you've got. Make sure Just Baseball keeps popping up. Feed the algorithm because the algorithm is back up, man. How was Saturday night for you? Was it the worst 12 hours ever?
Yeah, no, it was weird. There was a part of me with TikTok where I was like, you know what, good. I mean, just let it go. I mean, there's like, but then the real part of me was like, well, it's Peter, it's a huge part of the Just Baseball's business. It is an engine. It gets, our podcast out to, more people that we could ever imagine. And again,
No.
just another extending thanks to all the people who have been listening. And again, the best way to support for all of this free content, just rating, review, Spotify, Apple Podcast 5 stars, leaving comments, and liking the video on YouTube. But going back to the TikTok thing, yeah, our Instagram following has been increasing, our Twitter following, YouTube, the website, so many other things have been rising as, TikTok has been the main engine. But, you know, just the discourse back and forth, all the people coming out and admitting that their channels were completely fake, right? I saw all those videos. Have you seen those where people are
No.
saying, there's one last thing that I have to share with you? And then people are just coming out and saying, yeah, I was pretending the entire time in my
What does
niche.
that mean, pretending?
I don't know. There was multiple people that have in fashion or in music or anything that they were just saying that I basically plagiarized or like it was insane things that were happening on
I
TikTok
don't
on the last day.
I don't understand,
I
man.
don't
That's
understand it either.
how can you fake it? I like deep fake dances? How does that work?
I don't really know either, but it's back. TikTok is back. Whatever. No, it's a good app. It's a good app. It's just it annoys me all the time as someone who runs our TikTok page.
It's a fine app.
Yeah.
It's a fine app. I do want to talk about Anthony Santander before we get into the first baseman stuff, because he finally found a spot to land. The deal for Anthony Santander with the Toronto Blue Jays, 5 years, $92.5 million. There are deferrals involved in this deal. See, it's not just the Dodgers that can defer money. It's not just American teams that can defer money. You can do it in the six as well. Somebody put gravy and cheese curds on those taters. Has anyone made that joke yet? Has anyone done the poutine thing?
You might be the first. You know, I even tweeted this out. I've been giving Ross Atkins shit. This podcast has been giving Ross Atkins
For
shit,
sure.
right? So because we look at their overall payroll and we say, well, this team is fighting not to finish last. The other teams in the top 10 payroll are all big time contenders, right? So the money allocated hasn't exactly been great in the Ross Atkins tenure. The fact that they won't extend Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the fact that I thought that they lost that trade for Andres Jimenez. But let's give them some credit here
Hmm.
because they are not one of the teams that has been continually not spending or continually not in the running for any of these free agents. That would make the situation a lot worse. Like we
Yep.
make fun of them being finalists because it is funny, but I'd rather be a finalist than not a finalist. And I know I already uttered that sentiment, but I think it continues here with the Anthony Santander signing. What did this team need to address this offseason? They needed power. 26 in home runs last year. Of course, they have Vladdy, but they needed it. And they go get Anthony Santander with 44 home runs. They needed an outfielder. They needed a power bat in the outfield. Who did they get? The best on the free agent market, right? They needed a bullpen piece. Who did they get? Jeff Hoffman, one of the best relievers in Major League Baseball. Like this team is addressing needs. They have been in the runnings for all of these free agents. And yes, I have been making fun of them, but at this point, I don't want to make fun of them as much anymore. I think this was a good signing for them, right? They didn't vastly overpay for Santander either, right? There were projections that thought 5 years, 125 maybe more. I saw some outlandish ones. I saw a 6 year 150 out there projection for him.
No. I,
Now
I
that was really high, but in a
right.
market like this where everyone is getting paid insane amounts of money, you could piece it together and see why. 5 for 92 with deferrals? It's a pretty good deal.
It is. It's a good deal for Toronto. I will say I don't think Santander's value was going to be nearly as high as the initial forecasts because people had time to sit on the very low walk rate. Like the low OBP, he had to hit 40 plus homers to have an OPS flirting with 800. It's it, he's not an elite defender in a corner. Like there are a lot of holes that you can poke in Santander's game. And I think that docked his price. I think it's what's docking Pete Alonso's price, where he's not a world class defensive first baseman. Although, according to Vinny, they're super valuable because they what catch the ball every play, like kind of weird.
That
But
wasn't a great take. Can we talk about that? That was
yeah,
that was a
I didn't.
strange take by Vinny because I
I
love
love
Vinny.
Vinny. I love Vinny, but I did not. I
I
didn't
mean,
think that take was awesome.
we're gonna get into the top 10 first baseman. Like, arguably one of the worst defenders at the position led the position in F4
Yeah,
last year because he raked.
my other thing is like, okay, does is WAR a misjudgment of defensive value at first base? Probably.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's not a perfect stat. We don't have perfect stats.
No, and especially for first base defense, like you are inherently docked because you play first base, and that's tough metrically, where guys are looked at as a below average defender when they could be above average at first base. But WAR just doesn't like him the way that it likes shortstops and center fielders. But it's hard for me to think that that's a take that survives because, like, okay, try playing right, try playing left. If these guys could play a corner outfield spot, they would be playing a corner outfield spot. Vladdy would still be playing third base. He came up as a third baseman. It's always like the last ditch effort to find defensive value is first base.
Also, you know what hurts your WAR totals at first base? When you have a 108 WRC plus and then a 103 WRC plus the year
That's a
before.
shot. That's a shot. That's mean.
It is mean, but like that's going to hurt your WAR as a first baseman. It is, right?
Yeah, I thought it was a kind of weird take that he said, "Yeah, you have to have an 850 OPS to be valuable at first base." Yes, yes, you do.
And I'm in the boat. The reason I'm saying a 108 WRZ plus 103 for Vinny and giving him a shot is I think he could be an 850 OPS guy.
For sure.
I ranked him pretty high in my rankings. I see a lot of talent in you. Like I think you could easily put up a 3-win season if you hit the way that
Yep.
we think you can hit. Like no, if you put up an 850 OPS next year and you play fine defense, like no one's really looking at your WAR anyway. Like they'll be like,
Right.
oh yeah, he's one of the better first basemen in baseball. So yeah, I just thought that whole point I didn't understand it at all, and the thesis of his argument didn't even make sense.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. It was just a weird one that made me scratch my head, and I was like, okay, I get that WAR is not the perfect judgment of value at first base defensively, but yeah, you have to hit to be a valuable first baseman because it's not like you can show off your range five
Yeah,
times a game.
yeah. I mean, you just got to hit, and
You
Vinny's
just
got to
gotta
hit.
hit. So, but back to Tony Taters, he has to hit, has
Yes.
to, and he has to hit 30 plus home runs. And if he doesn't, is the OPS going to be 750? Like that's a little scary, I think. So I think it's that volatility coming off the boom. The boom made him a $90 million player. If he didn't hit 44 home runs this past year, he's not sniffing a 5 year deal for $90 million. He's getting a 2 year deal at 40, and he's super happy. But he got the longevity of the deal for five. I do think it's nice that Toronto actually saw one cross the tape at the finish line. Like that is it's encouraging for the Blue Jays. And it sucks that they've had a couple guys poached by LA seemingly. I guess Sasaki was poached by LA, but this is also the same organization that the player representatives for the Sasaki meeting were Chad Green, Dalton Varsho, and Bo Bichette. Bichette's off the books after 25. Chad Green's off the books after 25, and Dalton Varsho is off the books after 26, and he's still going through the arbitration process. It's not like they struck this multi-year deal to bridge arbitration. It was just a bizarre grouping with zero starting pitching and zero Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I was like, what are we doing here?
And and see, that's why I wanted to try and go away from making fun of the Blue Jays because
but
that's such an easy softball to give us. I mean, you
yeah,
make the trade for Miles Straw to clear up international bonus pool money to give to Sasaki, and then you said three dudes who are not like huge personalities that are going to be able to lure him, or even Japanese. Like,
I
well, the
saw.
Dodgers are bringing Otani.
Did I see John Boy say there's a rumor that Chad Green went an entire like 2 hour car ride without saying a word to
Yeah,
somebody?
like I don't want.
Notably silent person Chad Green is
They're
pitching
they're
Sasaki.
they're giving us so many softballs to make fun of him, but I'm not. I am going to look at Anthony Santander for a second. And to your point, Jack, I understand that, 44 home runs, is that something that is going to continue to happen? Maybe not. But when you said that he's going to lower to a 750 OPS, I mean, in 2023, 28 jacks, 797 OPS.
Yeah.
2022, 33 home runs, 773 OPS. $18.5 million a year for that, even if it's not what he was last year, I still think that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Right? He's not going to be a great defender and right, but you're paying for the bat anyway. If he's 30 to 35 home runs with a 770 to an 800 OPS for the next 3 seasons, you're getting bang for your buck, and it was ultimately a good signing. The thing is, the Blue Jays still need to extend Vladdy. You have
Yeah.
to. I mean, how can you not? And then I would go get one more reliever because they did get Jeff Hoffman, but they did lose Jordan Romano here. But
Yeah.
now I'm looking at a Blue Jays lineup where I think they could be okay. I mean, you have Bichette, who we think is going to bounce back, or at least I do. Of course, you still have Vladdy, you have Santander, you have Varsho coming back. I think Alejandro Kirk is going to be pretty solid. I think he's going to have a better offensive season than he did last year. I mean, he still has great plate discipline. He still hits the ball pretty hard. He's not a great offensive piece, but he's a good offensive piece. And that's guy's probably going to be hitting sixth or seventh in the lineup. And then you have a Will Wagner at DH who could maybe supply some power. He's at least an exciting young bat to look at. I mean, that's like 7 of the 9 guys in the lineup. Then they have a rotation with Gosman and Barrios, who are solid. They're not great, but they're solid. Bowden France has really stepped up last year. Bassett, again, kind of your 4.1 ERA guy in a ton of innings. And then maybe Yariel Rodriguez takes a step up and is a decent 5. Okay, that's a fine rotation. Then you look at the bullpen, adding Jeff Hoffman, adding Yimi Garcia. They still have Chad Green. It's not a bad team. But
No,
the reason
it's
we keep
not.
making fun of them is because then they send the 3 guys to talk to Roki, and they make the trade for Miles Straw, and they make a trade for Andres Jimenez, and they finish third on the Jeff Hoffman because the other 2 teams were like, oh, he failed our physical, and then you got him. There's so many narratives that make it easy to make fun of the Blue Jays, but when you really look at the roster and you look at where they're going to next year, I think they're going to be okay.
I will say Johnny Junta of Gate 14 is on a tour de force right now on Twitter. He's killing the offseason
He's
right
losing
now.
his mind. He's
It's
losing, and I
so
love him.
funny. And the chair in the corner of the hotel room thing is hilarious to
Yeah.
me. And all of it is encapsulating of the Toronto Blue Jays right now. And the reason we're making fun of them is they keep going for the big fish and they're not landing one. If
Yeah.
you're playing NCAA football 25, you keep going for the number one recruit in the country when you are the offensive coordinator at Kent State. Like I'm not saying that the Blue Jays are bottom of the MAC, but it's like, hey, let's try and find some mid-level guys if the top tier guys are continuously saying no. And I think they found a top-end mid-level guy here in
I agree.
Santander. So
I agree.
I thought this was a good pickup. I thought it was needed, and I thought it was the only perfect fit for Santander and for Toronto when we played GM with the Blue Jays last week. So I'm excited to see how it all shakes out. I'm interested to see how it plays outside of Baltimore, but I'm with you, man. Like I'm just looking at home run totals the last 3, and you mentioned 33, 28,
Yeah.
44. This is one of the premier power bats in Major League Baseball when you look at home run totals since the 2022 season. So I'm excited to see what it looks like. Um, I also like that the price point is not crazy considering the Blue Jays may be close to blowing it up if
Yeah.
this year does not go according to plan and they can't strike a deal with Vladdy. I can't fault them for not trying, which is
Yeah.
what you said off the top. They're trying.
Yeah.
I can fault them for not trying with Vladdy, but I haven't seen enough reporting to indicate if they've offered a competitive deal or anything like that. I never faulted Washington for not trying with Soto because they offered this cat $44 million and he made a $300 million bet on himself and won.
Yeah.
Like that might be what Vladdy's doing. Hey, we'll give a first baseman $300 million. No, my bat's going to get me 4.
Yeah. It's a lot
That
to
could
stomach.
very well be what's happening.
Yeah. We aren't in those rooms. I do think that they should just give Vladdy the money. Like if they need to go to 350, go to 350. And if again he still wants
If
to
they
bet
need
on
to go to
himself,
four, if they need to go to four at the age and the offensive production, right? It makes you lean, it makes you exhale, and it
here's the
makes you
thing though,
rub your eyes
he's if you let him go, he'll get 4 from somewhere else.
from the Mets or the Red Sox.
And they should learn that from, the guy out west, Andrew Friedman. If you look at every free agent objectively, you're going to finish third on every free agent. I'm not sure if that's the exact quote, but
Yeah,
basically, if you offer market value, you're not going to get him. So
right.
if the Blue Jays do have to give him a 4, they have to give him a 4. I
Yeah,
mean, we're going to talk about him later on our first base rankings. He's one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball.
he
Like,
is.
you don't get that guy just walking through your door at 25 years old who has said he wants to stay in Toronto. You might get that once every 50 years. Sign him, give him the money. The people who own the Toronto Blue Jays, you look at Forbes rankings, they're the second richest owners in Major League Baseball.
Aren't
Pay
they
the man.
publicly held too?
I think, I
Isn't
don't know.
Rogers publicly held? I have no
They
idea.
definitely have a ton of money.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see how it all shakes out, man. The good news is the Dodgers won't pony up and pay Vladdy because they've got Freeman on the books, but the Dodgers
They still
are
might.
yeah, they might, in a quote, tentative agreement with Kirby Yates. That was first reported by Bob Nightingale. Nothing is official, according to multiple trusted reporters, Fabian Ardaya, Ken Rosenthal. They've said nothing's official yet, but they are progressing quickly towards a deal, and they have a tentative agreement. That was the terminology used. Kirby Yates was a guy that was as good as really any reliever in Major League Baseball last year, not named Class A, and he flew under the radar because he was on an underwhelming Rangers team. But this guy's ERA was firmly in the ones. Do you have it in front of you?
117,
Come
33
on.
saves and 61 innings.
So he found the fountain of youth for a year. Does he find it again in 25? We'll see. But all this tells me, and I saw the comment saying you might be done with the Just Baseball show because I keep rehashing the Otani contract and how that provides financial flexibility. I hear you. I'm done. All I'll say on this is he clearly has minimal interest in throwing the ninth for another team. He's perfectly content throwing the seventh for the Dodgers. And frankly, I don't blame him.
Would anyone listening blame him? He's 37, 38 years old. He's coming off a good year. Go live in LA. Go play on this team. I mean, it's a no-brainer for it. You could be the biggest
Anybody.
Dodger hater in the world. You're sitting there listening to the show, being like, "I'd probably go. I'd probably go." He's a human being. Like I'd
Yeah.
probably go. But this, I tweeted out a picture titled "The Next Chapter," and it was an AI image of Patrick Mahomes and Victor Wembanyama in Dodgers jerseys.
Cool. Now,
This
did you create that yourself? Did you use an AI generator or did you find that
Grok,
somewhere else?
Grok on X. It's your little AI assistant.
Don't you have to pay for that?
No, or I pay for Twitter
Well, you
like
have
a
Blue,
sheep.
so you probably get Grok.
Yeah, I get Grok. Does that come with Twitter Blue? I mean, I'm
I
a sheep. I
probably.
pay for it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. But yes, so I tweeted that out in AI. No, this is another example of the Dodgers kind of rubbing it in our faces that they can, right? They don't even really need a reliever. They didn't even really need Tanner Scott. This wasn't a Dodgers team that lost Blake Trinan and an Evan Phillips, for example, and really needed to upgrade in the bullpen. They didn't lose either of them. They actually
They
brought
brought
back Blake
Trinan.
Trinan. And then they go, who's the one pitcher in baseball that's given our best player some trouble? Oh, Tanner Scott. Yep, 4 years, 72. And he took less to go with them. Because why would you take $10 million more to go play with the team that's not named the Dodgers? If I'm looking at the human being of Tanner Scott, of course I'd take that deal. Of course. I mean, Tanner
Yeah,
Scott, like he's a reliever. I'm taking the deal to go play with the Dodgers,
yeah,
right? I'm getting paid closer money, regardless if I close or not. If I'm Kirby Yates, I'm probably going to get paid 12, 13.
yeah.
It it doesn't matter if I close or not. I get to go play in LA. So, yeah, did the Dodgers need to do this? No. Can they? Yes. And I mean, Jack, this is the greatest team I've ever seen. I've ever seen. I've
Yeah.
ever seen.
Yeah.
This is this isn't even this is like taking the 98 Yankees, but also having like the best farm system and signing every single free agent. It's like the Yankees at their heyday, but better. I mean, the 98 Yankees, I think they won 112 games, 116 games. I mean, this team's, I don't know how they lose.
They lose if starting pitchers get hurt.
And then their ninth option is like the third best option on a lot of great teams.
Yeah. They are absolutely loaded. I wonder who they're trading to fill any gaps. Like they're a near flawless team. Where's the
Yeah,
flaw? Mookie Betts is playing short. I think I'd prefer to see him play second.
sure. Who cares?
So go get a shortstop, I guess. But like Freeland might be the guy. I have no idea.
It doesn't matter. I mean, just get all the guys in the lineup, get all those horses on the mound, close out every game with the best bullpen. Yeah, Mookie might make one or two more errors than he should at a wrong position. Right, what when they're already up 8-2. I mean,
Yeah.
who cares?
Yeah. Dude, I just nuts. Also, I saw something that I had no idea about. There was a note about Kopech. Bob Nightingale said that Michael Kopech was going to miss maybe the first month of the season. And I was
Oh
like,
no.
where did this come from? Blake Harris said that Kopech, quote, dealt with a forearm issue throughout the postseason, but it was not deemed to be anything he couldn't pitch through. So maybe it's just a rest and recovery thing on Kopech's forearm. He's out for the first month of the season. Maybe they lose 3 games in April.
Probably not. Probably not. It won't matter.
Maybe not.
I mean,
Maybe
they
not.
got Kirby
Are,
Yates instead. I
so
mean,
when are
they have a guy who pitched to a 1.17 ERA. He and I also love the signing on top of it. He's a guy who's pitched in the National League West before, right? He was San Diego's closer there for a little bit, so he even knows that division. I mean, it's
when
perfect.
when are they not a minus 200 favorite in a game?
Phillies
Probably when
against
they're
Wheeler. No, they like if it's in Philly against Wheeler and it's like Roki. I mean, they wouldn't be the favorite there. They wouldn't be Wheeler in Philly. They would need a Snell. They'd probably be favorites with Glass now. I don't know. There's like against the
I'm just
Braves with Sale on the mound.
I'm just trying to think like I think Sale against any of those five in LA, it would be a pick 'em. But I'm just trying to think about matchups and locations that would make them a dog. And I think Wheeler in Philly, Sale or a healthy Strider back half of the year in Atlanta.
I don't care who it is. I don't think they're not an underdog if they're at home.
Yeah,
It would
I don't
have
think
to
so.
it would have to be a Dustin May, Roki, Bobby Miller start in Philly or in Atlanta, and they're facing Sale and or Wheeler, and then in the American League, like they'd probably still be the favorite regardless against the Yankees and Cole at home. The Orioles don't have that ace. The Red Sox, no, even though I think Crochet is going to be a fucking monster. Um, It's so funny. DeGrom gets so much respect. Like DeGrom in Texas might be
Yeah, but
they
I
might be
mean
a
we're talking
favorite
about
over Roki.
we're talking about Dodgers Rangers. How often does
Yeah,
that happen?
I
It's
don't
on the
know.
schedule for 3, I think. Like, dude, it's just
McClanahan at Steinbrenner Field,
this is what we're talking about. Like they may be a dog twice in 162 games.
and they'd probably win those games anyway.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, if it was Roki versus Sale in Atlanta, like Roki could shove. I
Dude,
might be on the Dodgers there plus 110. I don't know.
absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
Absolutely nuts. Real quick before we get to the top 10 first baseman, I do want to talk about the Paul Skenes 101 patch being
Wait,
pulled. What do you
real
got?
quick. I forgot. I heard the coolest nickname for Roki Sasaki. I
What?
forgot. I almost forgot. Do you know what they call him over there?
Yeah, the monster of the Reiwa era?
What a name.
I don't know what it means, but I know that's what they call him.
They were explaining like once in a generation kind of guy. The monster of the Reiwa era. Does that not send shivers up your spine a little bit?
I thought Jung Hoo Lee's grandson of the wind was cooler.
Yeah, these nicknames are elite. We just have once in a generation, dominant, freak. the grandson of the wind, the
It's
monster of the Reiwa era. We got to take a page out of their notebook. These nicknames are elite.
it's cool. It
It's
is
so
cool.
cool.
Um, let's talk about that Skenes card real quick, because it was pulled. That Topps one of one debut patch that everybody has been on a crazy hunt for. It was pulled by an 11-year-old in LA. How cool that it was pulled in Los Angeles with what's going on in Los Angeles. I mean, in an 11-year-old too. That was the thing that jumped out to me. It's like it wasn't this random 55-year-old dude that like just bought up a ton and they don't need it. Like it was an 11-year-old that likes cards. And at that age, I don't care if you're a full-blown collector or not just yet. You're in it because you love it. You're not in it for, flipping cards and making bank to get the new Jordans. That happens when you're 14 years old. But 11, like, that is just so awesome. And I love that the right person pulled it.
So totally agree with you saying. The right person pulled it. 11 years old. That shit's going on eBay tomorrow for
Oh,
like
has to. Has to.
250,000.
Dude,
So the 11
they
year
live in
old and
LA.
that
Like they're not taking that Pirates offer where it's like, hey, you get season tickets for the next 30 years. I don't live there.
So we're talking about, oh, it's so cool. This 11-year-old is going to cherish this card. Fuck that. He's putting it right on eBay and he's selling it for $250,000 to pay for his college, pay for a down payment on a house, pay for anything. I mean, this is a once in a generation type pull for a once in a generation type pitcher. Like
Think
this
about that.
guy should be like going to Ken Golden, going here, going everywhere, and seeing who will give me the most amount of money. Because I would also sell it now. You never know what's going to happen with a pitcher. The hype is at an all time high. This is a 101 debut patch. I mean, it's a no brainer to put it online and get as much money as you possibly can. An
You would
11-year
you
old is
wouldn't
going
give
to.
it to Ski you wouldn't give it to Skeens for a bat. It's like, oh, here's a signed bat, kid. Thanks for my card.
I mean, as much as I love Paul Skeens, and I know they tried to make a good offer for anyone who potentially pulled it, especially in the
Yeah.
Pittsburgh area, but like, I mean, I like sell the card, dude.
Yes.
Sell
do,
the card.
do not give it to him for a signed jersey,
I'm
man. He's
sorry, Skeets, you're not
okay.
getting that card. You're gonna have to chalk up the
Um,
money just like everybody else.
Also hilarious. Did you see on his way to Pirates Fest last week? He signed somebody's copy of Crime and Punishment because that was the only thing they had on him.
I would have him sign anything if I was near him. I mean, like you got to get
Man,
your hands on one of those signatures.
that's got to be the funniest thing he's ever signed.
I bet throughout his career he's gonna have some interesting stories about things that he
No
signed.
doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Especially because he does those like autograph lines after games. Just amazing, man. But all right, we're gonna get to the top 10 first basemen in Major League Baseball in a moment. Before that, quick break. The top 10 first basemen in Major League Baseball for the 2025 season. We've got honorable mentions. I think we have three or four, and then we go 10 to 1. Give me the honorable mentions right now. Right now, pardon, there were four of them. The newly clean shaven Paul Goldschmidt of the New York Yankees is one of them. Michael Busch, off of a really solid first full season in the big leagues, the Chicago Cubs, is number two. Vinny Pasquantino, we just talked about at the Kansas City Royals, is our third honorable mention. And a guy that I think could have gotten some back end top 10 love is Carlos Santana of the Cleveland Guardians, just signed his free agent deal. This guy's been really good for a really long time. And I think he's one of the more underrated players in Major League Baseball, but he is our last honorable mention.
3-win season for Carlos Santana at the ripe old age of 100. I mean, he
Yeah.
he just continues to put up solid seasons. And I even put out a poll on X when both Goldie and Santana signed for the same amount of money, and I said, which one would you rather have? And it got about 2,100 votes. Santana won. So the general public would have rather have Carlos Santana on their team than Paul Goldschmidt going into the year. Now, the way I rank these guys, I had Jake Berger at 15. So we have four honorable mentions. My fifth would have been Jake Berger of the Texas Rangers. I had Goldie at 14. I did rank Santana just a slight spot above Goldie. And then I had Michael Busch at 12 and Vinny Pasquantino at 11. So Vinny would have been my number one honorable mention, but the player I really want to talk about is Michael Busch.
Yeah.
Because I noticed something weird about Michael Busch. Michael Busch raked on the road. 885 OPS, OPS under 700 at Wrigley, which I thought was weird
Hmm.
because in 2023, like You're a Chicago resident. You've been to plenty of games at Wrigley Field. You know when that wind starts blowing out to right and it's so easy to hit home runs.
It's when I fear for Kyle Hendricks' life.
Exactly. So, and you have been totally right for every year until last year. So, per Baseball Savant, if you look at the park factors for left-handed hitters, they have continually ranked in the top 5 in terms of easiest parks to hit in for lefties. This year they were at 15. Now, who didn't have great years? Cody Bellinger didn't have a great year. Michael Busch didn't have a great year. These guys didn't have a great year at Wrigley. I mean, Cody Bellinger just in general didn't have that great of a year, but his numbers weren't great at Wrigley either. So I was looking at that and I was like, if that ticks back up to the norms of Wrigley Field,
Mm-hmm.
where it starts getting into the range of top 5 for left-handed hitters, and Michael Busch is already raking on the road, like I think we're looking at a pretty good season for Michael Busch next year. I know it's park adjusted and all that sort of stuff, but that was something that definitely diminished his play, and also learning a new position at first base and getting good at that position. Like that's hard to do, right? I always remember that quote in Moneyball. Like how easy is it to play first base? It's incredibly hard. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like shortstop or something, but you're still learning a new position. And he was a second baseman, a third baseman. He's playing all over the diamond and got pretty good over there. He's a really solid player. Didn't know exactly where to rank him. I thought 12 was fine, but I like him. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him in this top 10 next year.
Do you have it in front of you? Where did I rank him? I want to say 11.
You ranked him number 11. Aram did rank him in the top 10. I ranked him 12. Eric ranked him 11th. Leo ranked him 13th. And Ryan ranked him 11th. And just another reminder for everybody listening, if this is your first top 10 that you're listening to on the Just Baseball show, we have 6 people who all ranked their top 15 or 20 players at each position. For this one, it was our top 15. So we all have different rankings. We aggregate them, and this is the average. So we all have slightly different lists, but if you combine all of those lists, this is now our top 10. So some of us are a little bit higher, some of us are a little bit lower, and we use this podcast to decide, who was a little bit high or low on a certain guy.
Yeah, exactly. So that takes us into number 10. And do you want odds or evens? What's your preference?
I'll take odds. I took evens last time.
Okay. So I'll do evens. Number 10 for this year is Tristan Casas of the Boston Red Sox. And Casas was kind of all around the board. I was the low man on Casas at 12. I think that was really just because he only played 63 games last year and it was an injury thing. And maybe the interviews are jading me just a little bit here. But Ryan had him at 9, Eric had him at 9, you and Leo had him at 10, Aram at 11, me at 12. This was a guy that played 63 games and only gave us .6 FWAR. Now, it was a 119 WRC plus. He hit 13 homers in 63 games, which is great, and he walked 12% of the time. But for me, I think I need to see Casas on the field a little bit more to truly flesh out how I feel about him as a top 10 first baseman in Major League Baseball. I think if we're looking at this year as Casas at the end of 25, as Casas leaving a little bit of meat on the bone like he did in 24, and Busch getting back to those Wrigley norms that you're talking about, like I absolutely think those two could get flip-flopped.
Yeah. Looking back on my rankings, I'm kind of pissed that I didn't have Michael Busch ahead of Tristan Casas the more I think about it. Because I think when I was ranking, I was using, more of my eyes for Tristan Casas. Because when I watch Tristan Casas, I just see such a smooth swing coming out from a 6'5", 245-pound beast. But the reality is this year, like, he struck out a lot. 32% strikeout rate, 31.7 to be exact, 219 expected batting average. Like the quality of contact was not great. Now, granted, he was injured, and then the year prior in 2023, I mean, this was 24 home runs. This was an 857 OPS. Like we know what he can do. And I think when I was originally ranking them, I was maybe higher on him. But I think kind of as the offseason has continued and I'm seeing less Tristan Casas, right? Because we're not watching him play every
Right.
single day. I'm growing a little bit colder, but so I'm going back and forth. Did I get group thinked into Tristan Casas being better than I think? But I'm going to trust my eyes. Like I think this guy is an 860 OPS guy. I think he's 25 to 30 home runs. I think he's a 270 batting average as long as he's healthy. And he's 25 years old. But again, if he doesn't perform again, he'll drop off my top 10. But I still think I think he can be a really good hitter.
Absolutely. I think he already is a really good hitter. The question is he going to be on the field enough? And, you can't ding a guy for that, but, 63 games and creating that impact within your body, it felt like a weird 24 campaign for me with Casas.
Oh, definitely. And he struck out way too much. Like Tristan Casas, we're not ranking him in the top 10 because we think he's going to have a 32% strikeout rate again. Like this guy should be Pete Alonso levels of strikeout rates where it's like mid to low 20s with a 12% walk rate. That we can stomach. 32% I can't stomach. So if there's a lot more swing and miss this year, yeah, he'll be dropping down my rankings. But he's in my top 10 because I think he, you know, will be better on that side of the ball.
Yeah.
So get into number 9 on our top 10 first base list, Yandy Diaz of the Tampa Bay Rays. And this is a guy who I'm kind of surprised everyone else ranked him this low, right? I ranked him number 6 on mine, but you had him at 9, Arm had him at 9, Eric had him at 10, Leo at 7, and Fink at 10. So I'm definitely the high guy, Fink being the low guy. Yeah, he had a down year, right? 281, 341, 414 slash line. Not great. Still fine, right? Still a top 10 guy, but only 14 home runs, 65 RBIs, 15% K rate, doesn't strike out at all, but a career low walk rate, or at least of the past couple of years, at 8%, 120 WRC plus 1.9 F4. So those are the numbers, right? And none of them kind of jump off the page, right? He's not the 330 hitter that he was in 2023. He's not the 22 home runs either. He's not the guy who slugged 567. But I think we're looking too much at just that year and knocking him down our rankings. Last year when we did this, he was top 5 after he hit 330. And it's not like he completely fell off the map. The quality of contact was still solid. It wasn't as good as it was in the previous year, but it was still fine. The reason Yandy Diaz, I think, had a slightly tough year was injury certainly didn't help, but also just putting the ball on the ground too much. 55% ground ball rate. This is a guy who put up a 164 WRC plus at a 50% ground ball rate. All the guy has to do is elevate the baseball. So I got on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for kind of the same thing. Grounding out too much, had a bad year. And in those rankings, we ranked Vladdy 6. And then what did you do this past year? Elevated the ball and put up a 160 WRC plus. So I think with Yandy Diaz, we're looking too closely at a year where he put the ball on the ground too much and not giving him the benefit of the doubt as one of the better overall hitters in baseball the 2 years before last year. So that's
Yeah.
why I ranked him higher than I think you guys did.
Yeah, so I will say I think this came from his average EV dropping a tick and the ground ball rate elevating because you mentioned that the ground ball rate was high. Like it was 52% last year and it was 55% this past year.
Yeah.
But he finished 6th in MVP voting as a 52% ground ball rate guy. At least that's the
Yeah.
number that Baseball Reference is giving me. You might have gotten 50, whatever. It's still very, very high. But the difference there to me is this guy was running a 55% hard hit rate in 2023. And in 24, that number dropped below 50%. Now, it was still very good. But the reason that I think I dock him is because ground balls, like you can't survive if you're not hitting the crap out of the ball all the time. And in 2023, he was. Vladdy, over the course of his career, does hit the crap out of the ball all the freaking time. And I think Yandy Diaz can be that. Would I be shocked if he finished well above ninth in the position in WAR and WRC plus? No, not at all. I think this guy is awesome. But it just seemed like a little bit of a downtick for me, and I felt like other guys leveled up to a degree that might have been close or even past Yandy Diaz. That's why I sat him where I did, and I had him ninth, which is still like that's where we had him. You know what I mean? I think this group is really darn good, man. I think it is. And they had one more guy get added ahead of him, which we'll get to.
And defense obviously matters, and Yandy Diaz stinks at defense. So that's probably another quality that you were looking at too. My
Probably.
thinking here is if Yandy Diaz elevates the ball a little bit more and still maintains the quality of contact that he had from last year, right? A 49% hard hit rate, still a 350 xWOBA. Like all of those numbers are still very, very good. He still hits the ball very hard, not to the level of hitting 330, right? That's not what I'm looking at. But how many first basemen are going to put up a 140 WRC plus on this list? I think it's going to be Bryce Harper. I think it's going to be Vladimir Guerrero Jr. It might be Freddie Freeman, and I think it's going to be Yandy. That's kind of where I'm at with that bat. Right. But again, he doesn't hit as many home runs as a Pete Alonso does, right? Or Matt Olson or any of these guys. Like Matt Olson and Pete Alonso might be on that short list of guys who will be
Yeah.
there.
I
Probably
think
more Matt
Olson
Olson.
I think Olson is going to be there.
But that's where I think Yandy's bat is going to be. And I think maybe you just disagree. Like you're probably thinking this might just be what he is for next year.
I think he's got a bit higher of an offensive ceiling than like 8 and 7 and 6. But once we get into the top five, I don't view him in that tier one. I think the top three are tier one. The next two, 4 and 5, are tier two. And then you get to 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. And I kind of view those guys as interchangeable. I would think about clumping six into tier two. But I don't know. Like, say the front three are tier one, the next three are tier two. Everybody in 7, 8, 9, 10, I think, can be somewhat interchangeable.
Yeah, see, I think he's in tier two.
Okay. Yeah, I
'Cause I
don't.
think the bat's that good. But we'll see.
I don't.
We'll see. The defense is terrible, though. That's what I will
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. So that is true as well. All right, let's get to number eight. And the eighth best first baseman in baseball this year, Josh Naylor of the Arizona Diamondbacks. I can't believe we got to a place where I had Naylor higher on my first base list than Peter Apple did. I had him at seven. So did Eric. Aram, Peter, and Ryan had him at eight. Leo had him at 11. He just freaking hit, man. He hit all the time.
You tell me. You tell me how he did.
He was great. Josh Naylor last year, 31 homers, 108 driven in, hit 243 with a 456 slug. He had a 16% K rate with 30 homers and 108 driven in. He had a 118 WRC plus, and he was a 2.5 win player. Is he good defensively? Absolutely not. But give me a guy that hits 30 homers and has a 16.5% K rate. That's a guy that hits the ball hard and doesn't strike out, and I love that at first base.
Yeah, and he's a good fit for Arizona, right? He hit 31 home runs last year. If he played every single game down there at Chase Field in Arizona, he would have hit 29 home runs. So the bat is definitely, I think, going to materialize over there. I mean, in 2023, the guy hit 308, right? I don't think he's going to do that again. He sacrificed some of that for some power, right? And we saw more of an elevated strikeout rate than the year before, but also a higher walk rate. I mean, this guy hits the ball hard. And the defensive metrics hate him. When you watch Josh Naylor, like, do you think he's a bad defender? Like, I don't. I don't know why. Like, odds above average gave him zero, which means he's league average. Like, I don't think he's that bad of a defender. He looks athletic over there, even though his body doesn't.
I thought that there were two borderline passable first base options for Cleveland this year. Like Manzardo is a very hard watch at first base. He plays like he has Tim's on. And I think Josh Naylor kind of plays like he has Tim's on too. And what I mean by that is like, holy hell, are your feet clunky right now? Like you're moving in slow motion.
Doesn't look like that to me. And he has a
He
nice
looks
pick
like
over
that.
there. He has a nice pick over there at first.
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
he loves scooping. He loves scooping baseballs.
One thing I am wondering about Josh Naylor, 31 home runs is incredibly impressive, and again, it would have been 29 in Arizona, but we did see a lot of these left-handed bats in Cleveland have a power uptick. Right, a guy like Stephen Kwan was in the teens. I mean, that's strange because they changed their ballpark a little bit, so there was more of a wind tunnel going out to right field, at Progressive Field in Cleveland last year, and when the guys came on the show before last season, Stephen Kwan and Tanner Bybee, they talked about leaning into the power more, leaning into the ballpark, the changes, and that exactly happened. So will that then replicate in Arizona? I'm not totally sure, but if he can hit 260 with 25 jacks, like he's gonna be a really good player, and he's still young. So I don't have a lot to say on him. I just know that when he's up in the box, especially in a big moment, I trust him. He's got an 824 OPS last year with runners in scoring position versus a 750 OPS with nobody on. Like this guy also levels up in big moments. It's another reason why I start to gravitate towards those type of guys. The guys when the lights are on, you
Yeah,
turn it on. And that's what
yeah.
Josh Naylor can do. He can hit some home runs. He's not a heavy strikeout guy, right? I said an elevated strikeout rate from last year, 13% 2 years ago to
To 16
16%, right?
to
So
nothing.
not a lot of swing and miss, a lot of hard contact. Some of those are going over the fence. And when the lights are on, this guy's going to show up. Great
Yeah.
player. I'm surprised you
I
rank him that high, though, because this list is pretty loaded.
It is pretty loaded. I think 7 and 8 could have been flip-flopped, but I opted for Naylor 7, and then the next guy that we're talking about 8.
Yes. So at number 7, Wilson Contreras of the St. Louis Cardinals was a catcher. Now he's going to play first base for the Cardinals, and Ivan Herrera is going to man the catching duties. And he didn't play a lot last year. Of course, injuries hurt his season, only playing 84 games. But in those 84 games, the dude raked 262, 380 on base percentage, 468 slug, 15 home runs, 36 RBIs, walked a bunch, 140 WRC plus, put up a 2.6 FWAR. I've talked about this before with Wilson Contreras, and it didn't really show up last year. But this guy historically has been much better as a bat at the DH spot than he ever was a catcher. So my thinking is you get him at a full year at first base, give him an entire offseason to get ready too, right? It wasn't an injury and you're like, all right, go learn first base on the fly. He's got an entire offseason to really, learn that position. And I think that this guy is probably going to be a 30 home run guy. He's probably going to be 90 RBIs. He's probably going to be a 130 WRC plus. Like, I think that he's going to really, really hit again. I mean, this is the best part of his game. There's a reason he signed a 5-year deal, and it wasn't because of defense. This guy can really hit, and now you're giving him a position to save his legs with a history of doing better at a DH position that is supposed to save his legs anyway. I think he's due for a really good offensive season.
Did you listen to the catcher episode?
I did not. To be fair, I listened to the entire front half and then I got busy with something else and I didn't actually listen to the rankings part, but I listened to
You
the
can
first half.
absolutely opt out of it. I was just going to say when we were talking William Contreras, I found a note that I think is hilarious and awesome, and it's all in the family. Since the start of the 23 seasons, so the last 2 seasons, catchers with 100 or more plate appearances, number one is Wilson Contreras, number two is William Contreras.
Really cool.
They're the two best hitting catchers in Major League Baseball over the last 2 years.
Makes sense to me. I mean, it makes total sense to me.
He can mash, man.
Yeah.
I think people have long slept on Wilson's athleticism. This guy is a freaky talent. And when he first came up in Chicago, it was the snap throws, the back picks, the hyper athletic defensive catcher that jumped out to everybody. And that translates to the batter's box, man. This guy is whippy, he's violent, and it's really fun to watch when he's right and when he's on the field. And the fact that he walks 12.5% of the time is crazy to me because you think, okay, these super athletic guys, like they're just going to chase everything, right? Because they want to get these swings off, they want to show off their ability, they want to show off their athletic ability. He's patient enough. He's a very, very good hitter.
Hit the crap out of the baseball last year, too.
Yeah,
I mean, just
yeah,
crushed baseballs, right? 47% hard hit rate. But again, I know I'm going back to Yandy Diaz. Like, Yandy Diaz hit the ball harder. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like, that's why I just continue to rank Yandy higher than this. But yeah, I think Wilson Contreras, we kind of know what we're going to get here. And I know that sounds crazy because he's switching positions, but the bat has been so consistent. 815 OPS the year before, 825 the year before that, 848 last year. And now he gets a position to save his legs at 32 years old. He's gonna he's gonna really hit. Like this is a guy who I don't I haven't seen fantasy baseball rankings, and I'm not the biggest fantasy baseball player.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for a guy who I probably think is going to be underrated in at least fantasy baseball circles, again, I could be wrong and he could be 5 in fantasy baseball rankings. I don't know. But if he's like outside the top 10, like this is a guy who I would go get and make my
Yeah,
fixture at first base. I think he's going to be
yeah,
one of the a top 6 offensive player at the position. Now, defense is what might hurt him, but again, we don't really care about defense. Like if you're all world, like Christian Walker, we'll notice it and it'll be reflected in the rankings. But these guys are all not very good.
right, right. Except Walker.
Yeah.
And that takes us to number 6. And this, I feel like, is where we enter the clear cut tier 2 of first baseman. Number 6 is the newest Houston Astros, Christian Walker. And you had him 7. You were
Yeah.
the low man.
Yeah.
I had him 6. Ryan had him 6. Arm had him 5. Eric had him 5. Leo had him 5. I think the reason that I love Christian Walker is because you have that immense value defensively, but somehow his offensive abilities are underrated. This guy played 130 games, hit 250 with 26 jacks and 84 driven in. He's got a 119 WRC plus. And when you tell me that you can get a guy that is 20% above league average and plays as good a defensive first base as there is in Major League Baseball, I'm absolutely giving him $20 million a year over the course of 3 years. No doubt. I thought this was a slam dunk signing for Houston.
And he matches up really well in Houston with those Crawford boxes. Like if
Yeah.
you look at Christian Walker's spray charts, he's not Isaac Paredes, but a lot of his home runs are to the pull side. So, as Father Time will eventually win against Christian Walker, he is going to be aided by a park that can maybe get some of those warning track flyouts to left field at Chase Field over the wall of the Crawford boxes. So the fit in Houston is going to help his numbers, absolutely. And that's why I understand that you ranked him. What did you rank him? You ranked him
6.
6. I ranked him 7. I think it's just because I'm very bullish on Yandy Diaz.
Yeah.
And I think the defense is great. Obviously, it's solid.
No, but you think it's meaningless and just admit that.
I kind of think it's meaningless. Like, I
You
think
think
it,
it's
it
doo doo?
matters, but I feel more confident about Yandy's bat next year
Yeah.
than Christian Walker. But I still think that Christian Walker is the safer option. So this is not one that I'm going to get upset about the rankings.
Mhm.
Um, I don't really. Again, the first base, they're all kind of the same. It's like,
Yeah.
who do you
Oh, this
think is
guy
going to hit?
mashes. Oh, this guy mashes a
Yeah,
little
who
more.
who do you think is going to hit a little bit more home runs? Like we're not really evaluating much, and a lot of these guys have been really consistent, which is great, right? There's
Yeah.
not a lot of newcomers. There's not a lot of first year guys, or wow, but he's so impactful defensively at a premium position like catcher. How do we balance that? It's really whose bats are you more confident in? And that's why I ranked Yandy high on this list because I'm more confident in Yandy's bat than a lot of these guys. But Christian Walker comes in at 7 and a firm 7 for me and can easily be in the top 5, especially in Houston.
Yeah.
And,
But I've got him.
you could throw in the defense if you want.
Yeah. I've got him at 6. But now we get into the top 5. Before we do that, one more quick break.
So at number 5 on our top 10 first baseman rankings is free agent, Pete Alonso. And the man has just been disrespected too much this offseason. I'm sorry, right? I went from Pete Alonso should definitely not get Prince Fielder money to all right, someone sign him for a 4 or 5 year deal. He deserves it. 162 games, plays every day. Slash 243, 29, 4, 59, 31 doubles, 34 home runs. Plenty of RBIs, of course, a 122 WRC plus 2.1 F4. It wasn't his best season. It was arguably one of his worst seasons to date. And that goes to show you the consistency of Pete Alonso, where it's consistently 35 home runs, it's consistently 100 RBIs. And the defense has improved, right? Again, I don't really care about it, but it does help his case that he's not a trash defender, that he's at least an average defender.
Yeah.
I think he's a run producer. I think that home run off Devin Williams was huge for him. I still think he's going to be one of the better power bats and run producers in the game for the next 5 years. I don't understand why some team won't pony up and give him 5 for 125. He might just want way more than that, and that might be the holdup here. And maybe then they won't come to a decision. But any team who does end up getting Pete Alonso is getting one of the best power bats in the game.
So Pete Alonso in 2020 played 57 games, had 16 home runs. 11 home runs that year was the prorated equivalent to 30 home runs, if I'm not mistaken. So if I did the calculation right, he would have hit about 43 home runs if expanded over a full 162. His 5 full seasons of 162, Pete Alonso's home run totals are 53, 37, 40, 46, and 34. So if you account for the prorated number being expanded in 2020, he had a quote unquote career low 34 home runs in 2024. I think that tells you all you got to know about Pete Alonso. His per 162 at this point in his career, 43 homers, 112 driven in, and 854 OPS.
Plays every
He's
day.
awesome. He's awesome. Is he 6 years at 200? Awesome. Probably not. Um, he's already 30, but is he 3 years at 100? Awesome. I think so, and I think that's what he'll sign for with the Mets in due time.
But don't you kind of feel that, let's say some team did give him 6 years for 200. We would come on the show and be like, that's a little bit too much money. Let's say 7 for 200.
Okay.
It's too much money, right? It's almost 30 a year. He's not worth that. Is it a bad contract though? You know what I'm saying here? Because
Yeah,
what do bad Pete Alonso seasons look like? Do they look like 30 home runs and a 780 OPS?
they look like this, man. They
Like
they
that's not
look
that
like
bad. I mean, I'd
no,
take
it's not.
that.
It was an all-star season. He had 30 doubles, 30 homers, and he almost had 90 driven in, man. Like I think it could look like maybe 30 homers as he ages. You got to remember this is going to be his first year on the other side of 30. We've only seen him play in his 20s at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about how he would age, and I think that his game scares a lot of organizations based on how it has to age. Does that make any sense?
It does, and that's the point I'm trying to make is I think everyone is too afraid at how this contract will age because I just don't see like a steep downtrend here. I see one season where he wasn't quite as prolific in the power department.
EVs dip when you get older, and
Yeah,
Alonso's EVs are as good as anybody in baseball when he's going right. But say like this 90th percentile EV or this max EV, this here's what his A swing looks like. Say that ticks down to the norm. Does he lift the ball enough? Does he play good enough defense? I feel like there are some other tools that are lacking that would make teams feel a heck of a lot better about Pete Alonso.
but here's the thing like average exit velocity last year was 89.8. That was the exact same rate it was in 2022 where he put up an 870 OPS with 40
Yeah.
home runs. He still hit a ball 116 last year. That was higher than his max EV in 2023 where he hit 46 home runs. I just don't see a drastic downturn here.
His ground
Like
ball rate was over 40% for the first time since his rookie year.
so he needs to make a little bit of an adjustment though. Again, like I don't think ground ball rate comes with age. I think it's a little bit of an adjustment here or there. I think it's about getting, 46% hard hit rate. That was even higher than 2023 or 2022.
So,
I just I don't see the downturn. So yeah, on the surface, it's going to seem like a lot of money. And if you sign him for 7 years, 200, you'll probably get the value of 7 years, 150. You know what
yeah,
I'm
and
saying? Like
I
you're
think
still
teams
going to
want that.
get a very good player.
I think so. Yeah, I think there's no denying that Pete's a very, very good player. I think the question is he going to get paid like a tier one first baseman when he shouldn't?
I mean, he should be in the ballpark of these Matt Olson, Freddie Freeman deals.
But also is 2 years younger when he signed his deal.
True, but the market has also evolved since then. We just gave out 765 to Juan Soto.
Yeah, but Santander also didn't get 100.
Yeah, but he still got a
And
pretty good deal.
a lot of teams are crying poor right now.
But Pete Alonso has been more consistent than Anthony Santander.
He has.
So I don't know. I would still give him a good amount of money. I think teams are being too particular with their analysis on Pete Alonso trying to find more holes than there are.
Maybe. Maybe. But let's get into number four now. And number four is on a team. It's Matt Olson of the Atlanta Braves. And Olson, by all accounts, had a down year this past year. But guess what? He still played 162, and that factored into my four. He was the consensus number four first baseman in Major League Baseball across our six voters. This guy, down year, 247, 37 doubles, 29 homers, 98 driven in, a walk rate over 10%, a 117 WRC plus, and he was half a win better than Pete Alonso at 2.6. He's a good defender at first base. He hits the living crap out of the ball. And if I get a down year of Olson after 54 and 130 driven in, and it's 29 and 98 driven in, I'm very happy giving that guy 8 for 168.
So far, we have done the top five utility. We've done, or not top five, top 10 utility, top 10 DHs, top 15 catchers or top 10 catchers, and top 10 first basemen. When you look at all of our lists, I think there are a lot of rankings that will lead to discussion.
Yeah.
One that I think we all agree on, William Contreras is the best catcher in baseball. I think you could debate two and three. I think throughout that entire list, you could debate where everybody is ranked. I think you could debate the top utility guy. I think we all know that Shohei Ohtani is the top DH. Jordan is number two. But then from there, you can deliberate. On this list, I think the constant with all baseball fans, Matt Olson is the fourth best first baseman in Major League Baseball. Because the top three, you're not ranking Matt Olson above them. And then you look at the rest of the first base crop, you're not ranking Matt Olson below any of them. Now, Matt Olson did have a down year by his standards. What we're used to in Matt Olson is 40 home runs. Now, that 54 home run season was probably an outlier. But what hasn't been an outlier for Matt Olson is 35 to 40 home runs with 100 driven in with solid defense. He didn't have that last year. And I think this is now the outlier bad season. Because if you look at his second half numbers, he was great. Of course he was. Right? Had a down first half. It happens. But the reason I love Matt Olson, plays every single day, power threat at any moment, but hits the ball to all fields. It's not a massive, massive strikeout guy, and there's still some plate discipline there too.
Yeah.
And he's one of the best bets in baseball to hit 40 home runs. Like I was looking at BetMGM futures. Use code JustBaseball if you want to get in there early. First bet offer up to $1,500 back in bonus bets. Matt Olson 45 to 1 the lead Major League Baseball in home runs. Yeah. Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
45 to 1 the lead Major League Baseball in home runs. Now, of course,
Yep.
you have Judge and you have Ohtani and you have a couple other guys who probably beat him. But 54
But
home runs is in there. It's in there. We saw it.
we saw it last year. We didn't
And,
see it in 24. We saw it in 2023.
and who knows? Maybe Ohtani now going back on the mound maybe gets hurt for a little bit. Aaron Judge, he's not a person who is, the symbol of health in Major League
No, and
Baseball.
and with Olson, you know you're getting 160 games. Like
Yeah,
I do
he
think
plays
that
every
that
day.
should be baked in. You know he's playing every day.
Yeah. Matt Olson, definition of solid. But again, another guy rakes. Of course he
Yeah,
does.
he's
I mean, he
awesome.
does.
Big strong man, hit taters.
Again, like, what are we going to tell you about Matt Olson that you don't already know? Right?
No. He has okay, here's something you may not know because
Okay.
every time you watch him, he's wearing a helmet or a hat. This guy has some of the best hair in Major League Baseball, and nobody knows. It's perfect. It's like, okay, you want dashing businessman vibe? That's him. That's Matt Olson.
I also think that Matt Olson, have you noticed that Matt Olson's glove looks really big?
I
It
have.
does. He has
Yeah.
a really big first baseman and a really big bat. I talk about that where some guys it looks like
Illegal
they're
bats.
swinging illegal bats. Did you see that report that they're going to start cracking down on that more?
No.
Or at least it's been a problem? I saw
Is
a
is my
report. I was
is
like, I
King
knew
Corey
it.
Seager screwed?
I knew it. I
I'm
knew these
worried.
guys were swinging. I knew Schwarber was swinging an illegal bat.
I'm
The
worried
barrel
about
looks
Seager,
way too
man.
big in the zone.
I'm really worried about Seager's stick, man.
Like Matt Olson, I bet Matt Olson swings the largest bat in Major League Baseball only to Judge. That's a big
Um,
piece of lumber he's
I,
using.
I will say, you know who looks like they swing the biggest bat ever is Altuve.
Yeah, well,
It's
that's
pretty funny. It's kind of
DJ
funny. It's relative.
LeMahieu. I've always said that DJ LeMahieu to get back where he was needs to lower the amount of ounces
Yeah.
in his bat. Like
You
his
know,
bat's too heavy.
Alfonso Soriano could have been a Hall of Famer if he swung a little bit lighter of a bat.
Another huge barrel guy.
Yeah,
Definitely cheating.
huge, huge.
Huge
It
barrel
was
guy.
actually a huge barrel. It was like the biggest bat I've ever seen.
Matt Olson has one of those. Kyle Schwarber, though, is number one on my. I think you're cheating with that bat. All right, let's get into the top three. And I put this out on Twitter and or X, whatever, and I even said focus up. This is a huge question because when you're looking at the top three first basemen, you got Vladdy, you got Freddie, and you got Bryce Harper. We're gonna rank them right now, but I could hear an argument in any order. I really could. But at number three on our rankings, Freddie Freeman of the Los Angeles Dodgers. World Series MVP, coming off just another great year. 282, 378, 476, 35 doubles, 22 home runs. He was 9 for 11 in the stolen base department, never strikes out, walks a ton, 137 WRC plus 4.0 F4. He's awesome. He's phenomenal. One of the best players to watch in the box, operating at bat. You just can't get anything by him. The scouting report for Freddie Freeman must be a nightmare. I mean, what do? Short and compact. You pitch away to him. He's going to take the ball to left field. He's going to hit it the opposite way. You throw one into his wheelhouse. He's going to hit it 430 into the seats. You throw him something down the middle. He's not going to try and pull it. He's just going to hit a laser straight to center. He's a good defender. He's fleet of foot still. He won a World Series MVP on one ankle, which still, I can't believe I doubted him like a moron. Like a straight up moron. He's amazing, but he's at three for me. And the reason he's at three for me, he's 35 years old, right? If we're splitting hairs here, I'm going to give the Bryce Harper pitch in a little bit of why I think he's just going to have an incredible season. Like, I'm not saying that a guy like Bryce Harper has something left to prove, but like, what does Freddie Freeman have left to prove? I mean, at
Nothing.
35 years old, like World Series MVP, loved by everybody. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I think he'd be in the Hall. Would he be a Hall of Famer if he retired today?
I think so.
I think so too. Or he'd at least be there. I mean, maybe, he's picking up some more numbers. He's looking at career milestones and stuff like that, but I still think he's going to be great. I ranked him three, but that would just be my one thing is I think I'll talk about Bryce in a minute. Vladdy in a contract year. And both of them are just so prolific offensively and really going for it. Well, Freddie, like, I think he could kind of coast a little bit, and who would blame him? The Dodgers don't even need him offensively. They're that good. No, I'm splitting hairs here. I'm really just thinking of ways like why would he be worse? He's a little bit older. It's not the same power production that we're used to with Freddie Freeman, but he's still awesome.
Where did I have Freddie?
You had Freddie number one. So give me the number one pitch for Freddie.
Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in 2023 had a 788 OPS. Okay.
Yeah, lost me
When was the
$9,000.
when was the last time Freddie Freeman did that?
Like middle school, like maybe seventh grade, he was
Maybe,
sick.
maybe.
No,
Um,
maybe for like 2 weeks he had a million OPS in high school and they made him hit right-handed for a little bit and he put up a 780 OPS.
could be. I'm looking for a stop that lasted longer than 20 games. That he had an OPS under 788, and it was as a 19-year-old in Double A Mississippi in 2009. Freddie Freeman in his major league career has never had a season longer than 20 games, his first 20 games of Major League Baseball, where he had an OPS lower than Vladdy's in 2023. He's been playing this game since 2010 at the highest level. I'll just give you the rundown of like OPS by year in his career. 795, 796, 897, 847, 841, 968, 989, 892, 938, 1102 in 2020, 896, 918, 976, 854.
Hall of Famer for sure. What I will say is Vladdy put up an OPS over 1,000 in a full season in 2021. Freddie Freeman has never done that in his career. He did it in 2020 in a shortened year, but he
Yeah.
actually has never done that in his first year. So peak Vladdy at 22 years old put up a better offensive season than Freddie Freeman has in his entire life. Vladdy is also, we'll talk about Vladdy is, and we can kind of talk about Vladdy in this paragraph,
Yeah.
right? Like we can just continue because, and number two is Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Yeah.
Coming off a year where he hit 323, 396, 544, 30 jacks, 103 RBIs, 44 doubles. Didn't strike out at all, 13%. Struck out less than Freddie Freeman. 165 WRC plus, 5.5 FWAR. I mean, it's overwhelming the bat that he has. He led Major League Baseball in outs, hit above 95 miles an hour. Even his outs are hard. I'm more afraid of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in the box right now than I am Freddie Freeman. And I think that's where it comes down to.
Yeah, so Vladdy's 2024 was better offensively than any year that Freddie Freeman has had. But Freddie Freeman also has led Major League Baseball in doubles in each of the last, or he didn't do it this year, but he led in 22 and 23, his first 2 years in LA. And this guy in 3 years in LA has accounted for a 314, 399, 520 clip. And Vladdy is amazing. I'm totally with you. But the reason I opt for Freddie over Vladdy is Freddie has, at the major league level, literally never failed. And failure is a relative term, and it's based on the expectations that you have. And I think Vladdy would probably call 2023 off of 2022 a failure, a 788 OPS. Freddie has never regressed like that. So while Freddie may not have an OPS over 1,000 in the tank anymore, I don't think he has an OPS under 800 in the tank. And we know Vladdy has it. He's a year removed. Do I think he's going to be an OPS under 800? No, I don't. I think this guy's going to be closer to 1,000 than he is 800. But I haven't seen Freddie struggle in my entire baseball life. And I've seen Vladdy struggle relative to expectations.
I think that everything you're saying there is more than fair. But I think if I put you on a lie detector test and I said, Jack McMullen, who do you think is going to have the higher OPS or higher WRC plus next year
I think
in a
it's Vladdy, but
contract year for Vladdy? So that's what we're ranking here.
I
So
think it's Vladdy, but
I
I
appreciate
also
what you're
I'm
doing.
also accounting for defense, man. Like I'm
True.
accounting for defense, and Freddie, assuming the ankle's fine, is a heck of a lot better defensively than Vladdy is.
Vladdy's dog shit at defense. And he still put up a 1.5 win season better than Freddie did last year, Vinny.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. But you know what I'm saying? Like he still put up a 5.5 win season while being that crap at defense. Like
yeah,
that's how good the bat is. And in a contract year, I can't get over it. I can't. I think he's going to be a 980 OPS with 38 to 45 jacks while hitting 300 and striking out 14% of the time.
totally
All it
could.
is with Vladdy, just elevate the ball a little bit more.
He
What did you
totally
do?
could.
That 788 OPS here. The ball was on the ground too much. And then it wasn't. And then it's a 940 OPS. It's just,
Yeah,
it's really that simple. That's how hard he hits the ball. And he's going to consistently do that. And then now looking for a 4 at the beginning of his contract with 8 other zeros following it.
yeah.
I think we're going to get an absurd season. But I do have him 2 because I think number 1 is I got a pitch for Bryce Harper that I think is going to fire you up.
Okay.
So, do you want me to just go over it right now?
Yeah, do it.
So the number 1 first baseman in baseball is Bryce Harper, the Philadelphia Phillies. So I ranked him number 1. So did Ryan. So did Leo. So did Eric. Arm ranked him 3rd. You ranked him 2nd.
Yeah,
Oh, no, excuse me. I ranked Bryce Harper 2nd as well. I ranked Vladdy 1. Yes, I ranked Vladdy
yeah.
1. I think Vladdy in a contract year is going to have the best offensive season on this list. I think the second best offensive season on this list is going to come from Bryce Harper because I think Bryce Harper, I think this is the year where Bryce Harper can become like an inner circle Hall of Famer. Because I think about Bryce Harper's career and, he's won an MVP in 2021, right? It was an insane, insane year. And then, of course, he gets Tommy John surgery. He's working in a new position. And I think he sees what the Dodgers are building. He sees what the Mets are building. He's 32 years old. And I think this is the year where he could go absolutely berserk. He's not dealing with any injuries. He's not learning a new position. He's got to be fired up after coming up short in the playoffs, which we have not seen from Bryce Harper ever. I think this is going to be an offseason where he's just in the lab and he just comes out crazy. I think he is going to be up there in the MVP conversation. I think this is going to be his best year since 21. I think we're going to see near 300 batting average for Bryce Harper again. I think it's going to be your classic 3-4-5 slash line, like 300, 400, 500, with tons of home runs. I think this guy is going to be prolific, and I think this is the year to do it. 32 years old, because we know that Father Time eventually will win. Not many more seasons left to really put on another show. I think this is the show season. I think he's going to be crazy.
He might be in the lab. He's also in the kitchen right now making coffee tutorials
Yes,
and
he
banana
is.
bread tutorials, and it's kind of interesting. But um, I don't know if it's his last effort, but it is like,
We're
hey,
getting there.
you have very little excuses
Yeah.
if you don't do it now, and it wouldn't be an indictment because like the Dodgers are in that league and the Yankees exist. Like, I understand that it's really really hard to win a World Series, but this feels like it's Bryce's shot. They just traded for Luzardo. Painter's healthy. Like, starting pitching is ready to go. That
Yeah.
bullpen's going to figure it out. Kirkering is leveling up. They brought Romano in. And then you look at that offense, man. I know JT's getting older, but he's so heavily protected at the top of that lineup. Trey Turner, second half, looked like Trey Turner again. He's got Trey Turner in that lineup. It's the most fun leadoff hitter in baseball in Kyle Schwarber in that lineup. If they keep Bohm, okay, like he still provides some cushion offensively. Stott, I know he was really underwhelming, but you got to think about him. Like, you got to think about everybody in that lineup, as opposed to some of the other guys on this list where it's like, oh, they've got some duds. You're really the focal point. Bryce is obviously the focal point in that Phillies lineup right now, but there are other guys that make you think, and that can take a little bit of a pitcher's mind off of Bryce, and that could allow him to truly pounce. I don't know if it's going to be more prolific than 21, but I'm with you. Like,
Yeah,
got
I
a
don't think
year at
so
first
either,
base.
but I
Yeah,
think
but like,
close.
got a year at first base under his belt. It feels like this guy is ready to go again. I'm totally with you, and it's been a build up to 24. And this is okay, we're not the scrappy veteran team anymore. We won the division. We won it kind of handedly. Like, let's go do it again, man. We've got a target on our back in this division.
Do you share that same gut feeling that I have about Bryce Harper? Is that why you ranked him two? Because you still ranked Vladdy three,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that's more leaning on the Freddie Freeman argument where he's just so goddamn consistent.
Well, I think he's so consistent, and I love watching him play more than anybody else at this position. I like watching Bryce Harper play more than Vladdy. Like, there's just something about
Oh, me
the
too.
lefty swing and the aura in general. I'm attracted to Harper's aura. It's fascinating to me. Um, he's a guy that I've just like loved monitoring since I saw that E60 that Rachel Nichols hosted. You know what I mean? Like, he's been the guy for so long, and he's lived up to that for so long. And I'm fascinated by people's ability to pass a standard that was just so stupidly high. And I love him for that. He's one of my favorites.
Between Vladdy and Bryce, who are you more scared of in the box? Let's say your team is going up against them. And maybe it's my AL East bias showing. I'm as scared of when my Yankees are facing Vladdy as like the guys that are on my short list, obviously Otani, obviously
Yeah.
Judge, Soto, Jordan, and then it's like Vladdy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm terrified of that man.
Yeah. So for me, it's Judge and Jordan and Otani in like a trio of their own.
Fair.
Those three are living alone. And then after that, kind of a weird like who's who. I would consider Vladdy in there. I would consider Harper in there.
Definitely.
I think Devers is in there.
Scary as shit. Absolutely, yes.
I think Matt Olson is in that conversation as
Mm,
well. I do. I mean, he just whacks it, dude. But
yeah.
I guess I need an explanation of your question. When are you scared? Are you scared in the fourth when he's seeing a starter for the second time, or are you scared in the seventh when the game's on the line? Because when the
I'm
game's on the line, like Harper and Jordan might be living alone up top.
based on what they've done in the brightest moments. But to be fair to Vladdy, he hasn't had the opportunity to have a lot of bright
Right,
moments because
right.
his team hasn't been that good. So we can't like diminish. If he is up in a big moment, I am extremely terrified because you know
Yeah,
why? I know he's going to hit the ball hard.
yeah.
That's why Vladdy is number one for me because at the end of the day, it's hard to control where your ball is going to land. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. put up that type of season while also leading the league in hard hit outs. He hits the ball hard every single time he's up at the plate. Bryce Harper can't do that. Freddie Freeman can't do that. Nobody did that at the level of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. last year. And now in a contract year where he might hit the ball even harder
Yeah.
with more focus, and they did just sign Santander, so it's not like they're going to be a bottom
No, he's got
dwelling
some
team, so he
protection.
doesn't have to deal with what Luis Robert was dealing with on the White Sox.
Yeah.
He's he could win the MVP. I mean, he's going to be terrifying. He's going to
Yeah.
be terrifying, but I think Bryce Harper is going to be a smidge under that. I think he's going to put up 1,000 OPS season. I think Freddie's going to be awesome. Like I think he's going to put up an 880, 900
I
OPS. But if I'm the reason I rank Vladdy number one is I think he's going to have the best offensive season of any of these guys. Bryce Harper's going to come in two. Freddie Freeman's going to come in three. Mettelson's going to come in four. Pete Alonso's going to come in five.
Yeah. I think the top three are so interchangeable.
Yeah.
The top three can go any which way. And then I think Alonso and Olsen are right there in tier two. And I think Walker is there as well.
Was there anybody else that you wanted to mention? Like I know honorable mentions and stuff. Was there anyone on this list? Like, um, I think Spencer Horwitz is going to have a good year for Pittsburgh. like
Yeah, I think Horwitz.
Cole Keith with Detroit. I was thinking about ranking. It's so funny. Leo Morgenstern ranked Nathaniel Lowe 9, and
Yeah.
neither of us ranked him in our top 15.
And I get it. Like, Lowe is a very. I mean, that 23 season was awesome. And he looked like one of the more intimidating power bats in baseball.
We also didn't
Um,
rank Luis Arias.
no, Leo had a rise 12. Keith is an interesting one to me. I also think Candelario can really bounce back. Um,
I
and
think
then,
Lamont Wade is great.
yeah, I had Lamont Wade at 15. There's a decent crop of mid-tier first basemen, I think, in Major League Baseball. And dude, like, I know he's kind of been a meme recently, but don't sleep on Shonawell, man. I don't think he's this prodigious power bat, but he could hit 300. Like, I don't know if he does it this year, but I mean, he seems to have this innate feel for the barrel that is fascinating to me.
I also think that Luke Raley should not go under the radar either. Like
Rayleigh can hit the crap out of the ball.
it's really hard to hit in Seattle, and he's done fine.
Yeah,
Right? He's been like the one hitter. Julio Rodriguez, of course, and even Julio has gone through
Raleigh,
ups and downs. Like Rayleigh has been very, very solid for them. And
Rayleigh and Raleigh, those are the two.
yeah, Rayleigh and Raleigh. Before we go, let me leave you all with a last word. So on TikTok, they have this thing from some creators who tell us how to gauge time. Basically, that things in the past may seem a lot farther away, but they're actually much closer. And I thought that this example just blew my mind. The guillotine was still France's execution method when Star Wars debuted. Think about that for a second. No, just sit there and think about that for a second. The guillotine was
Yeah.
still France's execution method when Star Wars debuted. Do you know when the last sanctioned guillotine was in France?
Well, Star Wars debuted in I couldn't even get I wasn't a Star Wars kid. Was it
Before
late
Star
seven?
Wars. Like, when do you think the last sanctioned guillotine was
I
in
would
France?
guess. I mean, based on that, based on the reference point, like I would guess probably mid 80s.
1977.
Okay, there you go.
Like 1977, our parents were like in their mid 20s, in their low to mid 20s.
They
Like
were going to
France was still
college.
executing people by guillotine.
It does kind of seem like a decent way to do it. Like it just,
God.
you know what I mean? Like it nips it in the bud. You know what I mean? It's not like those people feel much.
1977.
It's pretty
1977.
darn recent. Like we
50
landed
years
on the
ago.
moon. It's crazy. We landed on the moon, and 8 years later, they're still chopping dudes' heads off.
Easily.
That's
Sanctioned.
wild.
So that's my last word. So hopefully everybody enjoyed this edition of the Just Baseball
Huh.
Show. We got the top 10 first basemen. We also went over a couple of free agent signings. And if you enjoyed, please rate and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. That is the best way to support this show. While also liking the video, commenting on our YouTube page, and of course, hit that big red subscribe button. Go get yourself some Just Baseball merch. We still got those World Series hoodies. They're fire. Go check it out in the episode description. You can also just search Just Baseball merch on Google and it'll lead you to our Shopify store. And of course, if you're gambling on some football this weekend or potentially getting in those MLB futures, use code JustBaseball on BetMGM. You don't want to waste that first bet offer up to $1,500 back in bonus bets. For Jack McQuillan, I'm Peter Apple. We will see you on Friday for our top 10 second baseman and more. And with that, thank you, everybody.